Welcome to the Disrupt Leaders podcast. My name is Bill, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host Julian. And we have got an absolute ripper of a topic for you today. And that topic is your first week in leadership.
So you're probably just taking over a team. Maybe you're new to the company. Maybe you're probably an SME or a person within the company, and they're going, you know what? You showed some leadership potential, young person. Please get in. Show us how it's done. Take other people through a journey. Now, Bill, day one, week one, you're a leader, fresh as daisies, right?
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Well, the first thing I'm probably thinking, and this is whether I'm new to the company or new to the role, is I kind of wish I had system access. I'm not going to lie. Jokes aside, I don't know, as a new leader, if I've ever come into an organization and had system access, literally ever. So a little bit of bonus tip before we actually get into what you should actually do as a new leader. Get your system access sorted. If you're new to the company, send them emails every day the week before and be like, is my access sorted? And if you're a SME getting promoted up, doubly so, because even though you think you have access, I guarantee you don't. What do you think, Jules?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. The amount of times you've been dogged by not having the right systems, nothing like starting a coaching session or a huddle, or you're even going to meet your manager and you got no clue what you're meant to be looking at. You got no clue that all these other leaders have access to things that you're way behind on, which really puts you off. So definitely a good tip, and happens more
100%.
often than we like to admit.
100%. And I think it's definitely a common challenge. And you sit there sometimes feel like a bit of a gooseberry as you're in a meeting and everyone's talking out these stats. You're just like, I can't see mine. And usually your senior leader will be able to send you the stats, but it's not the same. And it's so frustrating. So a little bonus tip, again, as I said before we get in, is just chase out that access, because I guarantee it will be at the venue of your existence once you get started. Now, as for the actual, what you should do day one, week one, morning one, you've literally just rocked up to work your first time. I think personally, I don't know about you, Jules, I think it's really important just to make sure that you know what you need to be doing. Now, if you're a SME and you've been promoted up, you probably have some understanding of what the KPIs are, what the benchmarks are. But I feel like usually you don't have that full insight of a team leader until you're in that role. And if you've been hired externally into a company, they can't really give you all the information in the interview. They can tell you roughly what the benchmarks are. But how do you know what's expected of you and who expects what of you? I think that's the important thing. Now,
You probably don't even know what a SME is. You know what I mean?
who is this me? What are those things to you? Who's relevant to you?
What do all these acronyms mean? I feel like corporate land is full of acronym city. For those out there who's probably wondering what Bill and I are talking about SMEs, is a subject matter expert. One of those real corporate lingo speaks. Sometimes means nothing. Sometimes means that this person's going to help you with everything in life. It can mean one or the other.
100%. Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I think as far as expectations go, and we've spoken about this a little bit offline, we think that there are kind of four major streams of expectations. And what I mean by that is that there's four different areas that will have expectations. Now, the first is an obvious one. Your senior leader, your boss's boss, your boss's 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 boss even, right? They're going to expect things of you. They will be the ones that will ultimately outline and benchmark what success is for you in the role. But then I also think as a leader, the second stream, and this is one that I think I don't want to say lesser leaders, but certainly less successful leaders tend to ignore, is your people's expectations. I think they are equally as important, because what they expect of you, how they expect to work, will probably dictate how hard they'll work for you. Now, third amongst this list is your peers. And another one that I see some people, kind of ignore. What do your peers expect from you? What do they expect from you as a leader? What else are you bringing to the team aside from your coaching sessions? Because I guarantee there are expectations. And last, but definitely most certainly not least, and if you're here, you're probably already a little bit aware of this one, are there your own expectations? What do you want to achieve? What do you want to succeed? I'm going to ask you this question, Jules. I'm going to throw a question to you. Of the four, I hate saying which is the most important, but week one, morning one, day one, hour one, you've just rocked up, you've logged in, you've got your system access because you listened to me, you were 200 IQ. Which one do you think is the most important? Where do you start your focus of the day?
Right now, I feel like one of those, the guy who goes to universities and puts that table out front and prove me wrong. Because Bill and I have had a private kerfuffle about this already, around what we think the first
disagreement.
Yeah, mutual disagreement. Yeah, correct. Disagreement amongst professionals. So what I think is your first stream of expectation is your people, because that's going to determine your overall success over the year and what they expect of you, and the expectations of the company as well is really important to get a grasp of really early. So prove me wrong, Bill.
Very much, I will do. I'm going to do because I feel like I can talk. Sell ice from Eskimo, as they say. Give to the gap. I have it. It's me. I feel like for me, I think that overall, people is always going to be as important almost as leadership. But I think morning one, week one, hour one, I think your senior leader is more important. I think knowing what success looks like in the role for you, ultimately, they're the one that keep you in the role. They're the one that are going to decide whether you pass your probation or not. You need to make sure that what you're doing, everything you're trying to achieve aligns to that. And I think people's expectations are important for the reason you've said, but it's your job as a leader to align what your people expect and want along with what the company expects and want. That is the definition of success, in my opinion, as a team leader. If you can do that and, you manage change, things like that, I think that is ultimately what causes success. And so I think my first thing, the first thing that I would do is look to set up with a conversation with a senior leader, I guess. Now, it's interesting you say this, actually. I was having a conversation. I say you said this. I'm the one that said it. But I was having a conversation literally with a friend of mine this morning as we were driving to the gym and we were talking about this. And he mentioned to me that he doesn't think it would be a senior leader. It would be whichever other team leader is looking after you, right? Because like you always end up getting another team leader. You have to shadow them. And I think it's great, but about you, I feel like if I have joined a new company, if I've been promoted up, and my senior leader, my boss, cannot put an hour aside for me Monday morning, 9 to 10, that is a massive red flag. But they're not willing to take that time.
All you need to know, almost, isn't it? Like,
All
if
you
they
need
can't
to
put
know.
aside for you, put time aside for you on the first day. Oh, Jesus.
Especially. And I think when I think about my current workplace, they absolutely did that. I had like most of the first day was spent on my senior leader. He was fantastic. He took me through a whole bunch of things, showed me a lot of things, where things were, what was important, what was being tracked, who I was going to be looking after, and gave me a little bit of a rundown over them. And that's something I'll kind of come back to when we get to the people's expectations. But I think that's where I would be looking to spend my time is I'm looking to get in with my leader and just find out what the benchmarks are. Because I think a lot of those other things, like when it comes to like your people, it's all and good to spend the time like going through the stats, looking at the numbers. I say this all the time, the numbers don't lie, but I need to know which numbers are important and which ones I should be focusing on. I think that's another thing, that getting across the numbers and getting across your stats is something that happens in that first week. I think you have to take your time to do that, but how can you do that without the clarity of what's actually important?
Yeah, listen, not that I'm willing to concede, but I am. I am willing to concede a little bit there. Bringing it back to our first thought process here, day one, week one, almost hour one. If in that context, I'll probably say, yep, the leader is probably the best person from the show you the ropes perspective as well, right? Because in a lot of cases that your senior leader has hopefully been there for a little bit longer than you have and has had experience in leadership. It doesn't always mean that. Hopefully that's the case. In most cases, I would think so. So yeah, correct. I'm meeting with someone in that first hour who's going to be really your benchmark for success. Then that's a great thing to do, I think. Yeah, set up some first hour stuff, and also go back to getting system access. Usually, it's them that gives you that system access, or emails the right person to get your system access. So probably not a bad thing. Going back to what we talked about before, yeah.
Yeah. I think, to be honest, to me, that's the first thing. Now, the other thing that I wanted to kind of circle back to is the shadowing and sitting with your coworkers. Now, I think, to be honest, and no disrespect in saying this, of the 4 streams, I think coworkers comes 3 and 4. Obviously, they'll have expectations of you. Your leader and people are always going to be 1 and 2. There's no question on that. Like, I'm always loyal to my people, go to the mat for them. But I do think in that first week, those first couple of weeks, leverage your peers. Now, no matter how skilled you are, no matter how much experience you've got, no matter how much you know about the company inside and out, every single company runs different as a leader. And so something that I always recommend to every new leader, whether they're new to the company, new to the role, whatever, is shadow as much as you can with anyone that is willing to let you sit next to them. Go to one-on-ones, go to huddles, go to meetings, go to coaching sessions. Just literally watch them do their paperwork. Watch them fill out a spreadsheet on Excel for 2 hours if you can. Because the more people you sit with, I guarantee that if you work with a bunch of colleagues, they're all in that role for a reason. For one way or another, they are all very good at something, maybe a bunch of things. And the more people you can sit with, the more you can round out your skills as a leader in regards to that workspace specifically, because you can cherry pick, I think. Like, oh, this person's excellent about the way that they structure their calendar and manage their data. This person runs a really tight one-on-one that's really focused around the company's values. And when you start to cherry pick a lot of those kind of bits and pieces, I think it really helps you round out what you're looking for. And again, round out what a success profile looks like in that role. And I think in that first week, discovering a success profile is probably one of the most important things you can do,
Mm.
along with introducing yourself to people and building those relationships. What are your thoughts on that?
I think also the other thing is as much as you learn things that you can do as well, incorporate into your own style, you also probably learn things that you can avoid as well. You got to be like, mate, I'm
One,
not super big fan of
mm,
doing that particular part of the role. And you might feel there's sort of value add for the way you want to run your team, etc. So you also learn those things as well. Apart from that as well, sometimes we go back to the scenario of you're a person already within the company and you've been promoted to a leadership position. Sometimes you say, oh, this person now is my peer and they used to be my leader, maybe, or somebody I used to
mm,
deal with. So I know what their style's kind of like. I think that the trap of that is sometimes is that you're
mm,
looking at it from an employee perspective, but when you
100%.
become a leader and you become a
Mm,
peer, it becomes a different relationship. And so you need
mm,
to also view it from that angle. So if you're buddying them on a coaching session that they're doing, or
mm,
you're just buddying them throughout a day, you might still pick up things that you otherwise would have missed from being an
yeah.
employee
Just
leader
a different
dynamic.
lens.
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
Yeah, I think,
100%.
and I think also people sometimes, for better or for worse, people treat people differently based on their position. Unfortunately, that's the way life works sometimes. They might have treated you a certain way because you were an employee or a person
Mm,
that was a direct report. So they might not have been super transparent with you. But hopefully, once you become a peer, they're a lot more transparent with you around why they do things and what outcomes they're looking for in their team
mm.
members and employees as well.
To circle back to one thing you said that I really liked, and I think it was relating to sitting in and chatting a lot of the one-on-ones and seeing things that you necessarily didn't like or didn't agree with. I
Mm,
actually think that's your purpose, that's your ability to connect with your coworkers. I think that's the time to show your value. You can't be heavy-handed with doing it, but I know me, for example, I'll give you a really good example. I've run coaching sessions for years. I've been a coach for years,
mm,
and you joined the company last year, and you
mm.
shadowed me. I shadowed you. We did a few bits and pieces, and you gave me a few ideas, and they were excellent. And I literally have kind of changed how I structure a lot of my coaching sessions to the way that you suggested because I think it works. And I think that's something you always got to remember as a leader. You've been brought in, you've been prodded for your set of skills, and don't be afraid
Mm.
to share those skills. Again, don't be a joke about it. Don't go and sit there and be like, your coaching session was terrible, because
Yeah.
people will not like that at all. But I definitely think that there's realm to provide that feedback, and then also to seek that feedback. Get them to come to
Mm.
your sessions and give you feedback. Because I think that the most important thing to do in that first week is just be a sponge. I guarantee you'll be knackered by the end of it, but just try to learn as much as you can. There was one thing I wanted to know. We mentioned, we've kind of debated which we think is the most important stream. I have said leader. I want to kind of get into a little bit more around like what that looks like though. So like
Yeah.
if it's you're looking to get those expectations, that meeting,
Mm.
you've sat down, your leader's been great. We've had that convo 9 till 10. You've got an hour. They're going to sit down, talk you through what kind of questions are you asking? What are you doing? What are you trying to discover?
Matt, love that. I think we sometimes don't plan these things. We go, oh yeah, new first day. There's no expectations on me. So you sometimes
Mm,
might be a bit relaxed, or you might be on edge thinking about what's the culture going to be
mm,
like, et cetera, especially if you're new to a
mm,
company. And
yeah.
we forget to actually plan out what we do because we think this is going to be one meeting
Mm,
of many, but this
yeah.
meeting could make or break your first week. So if you put into that perspective, you really want to think about what you want to get out of that meeting, right? So I'm a big fan of reverse engineering everything in life. So I think of what do I want to get out of something, and then I'm help that facilitate the plan, if that makes sense. So
Absolutely.
the thing I want to get out of my leader is what are the top 3 or 4 things that they want you to solve for them, right? So
Mhm.
you might have asked this in the interview already, but they usually give you a very vanilla version in the interview, don't they? They're kind of, I want a really detail oriented person. What does that mean? I don't know. Nobody knows.
Absolutely.
Yeah, nobody knows that. But now that you're in that position, you can go, okay, so what are the top 3 or 4 things you want me to help solve for you in your position?
Mhm.
That's a really good question to ask, I think, as well
I
as
love that one.
go in and go, okay, what are your benchmarks for
Mm,
all the leaders you have? So if you're picking the best leader, what are those three or
I
four
love that question.
things they're
I love
bringing to
that
the
question.
table that
Mm,
you wish you could see in every leader? And then that kind of gives you a little bit of a blueprint of like, okay, throughout the year, the question you
mm,
probably should be asking you then following this kind of meeting is, if I'm doing anything, am
mm.
I getting closer to those 3 or 4 things? And
Yeah, I love
if
that.
I'm not, probably don't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. And I think definitely better than I would have done. And I really like the way that you're going to ask those questions. The only one that I think I would add, and it's kind of like, I guarantee this one gives you a little bit of brownie points, is asking the same question, but just from a culture perspective. As a leader, as my senior leader, what do you want from me from a culture perspective? How do you want me to engage? How do you want me to behave? Do you want me to, what are you looking for in that sense? Because I think most contact centers, most like leadership environments now, culture, they always talk about how important culture is, but every organization's vision of what a good culture is slightly different. And I think it's always good to know
Yeah.
what that is and kind of how you tie into that and how you fit into that.
Mm.
And like, if they've hired you, they've probably hired you for a couple of reasons. And I think it's really important to kind of ask that question. What is it from me that you want? Why me? Why did you pick me in the first
Wait,
place?
you're not the personality hire, Bill? I thought we both
I'm
were.
definitely the personality hire, like 100%. Like I know that like nailed on. And any of the
Yeah.
leaders that work with me will tell you that that's what I bring. That's literally my purpose, right? But it's
Yeah.
important that I'm aware of that and I'm self-aware because then I bring that to every meeting and
Yeah.
hopefully I attend.
Yeah, 100%. My position is just to make meetings spicy, I think. As long as I can make a few meetings spicy, my work is done. I
Oh,
can
100%.
tick off that list and go home. But yeah, 100%.
Oh,
I think
that's
that's a
it.
great point you bring up, a cultural part as well. Yeah, for sure. I think
Mm,
you can get a good understanding of KPIs and KRAs or whatever you want to call them, your key objectives. But at the end of the day, if you don't know how that fits in culturally and where the boundaries are, I think that's really difficult. Every job that I've started where I was a coach or a leader, sometimes you feel kind of really out of place. Is this the meeting where I can talk up? Is this the meeting where I can share this piece of information? Or, both of us have been in these situations, right, Bill? Like where sometimes some very senior leaders probably don't want to hear the things that you have to say, but your direct leader can really give you that down low on, okay, in this meeting, we kind of expect this, that kind of stuff, right? It might be not even in that first meeting you have with them. The question mark is, can you kind of be my compass in terms of when I go into meetings and situations with people? Can you direct me a little bit around what do I
Yeah.
share and when?
Yeah, for sure. First thing I think, before we move on, before we get into people, because I think the people aspect is going to be a major part of this conversation. I just have
Yeah.
one last couple of things that I want to add as far as this meeting goes, and it comes down to that fourth stream of expectations. It comes very much down to like your expectations, and this is some other things that I think we've spoken about a little bit. In that first meeting, I think it is every bit as important for you to do the opposite for your leader as you've asked them of you. Like obviously you've asked them what they want of you. I think it's really important to set that, like, what kind of like rhythm do you want catch-ups to look like? What support do
Yeah.
you need from them? I think that's the meaning you tell them. I don't think it's one of those things you keep that secret. We don't be shy about what support we want, what support we need, what kind of management style we like. If you don't like to be micromanaged, etc., that is the meaning to kind of get that stuff across. I think just have an open, honest conversation around what it is that you are looking for, I think is important. Would you agree or?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, correct. You kind of up and telling it, right? Maybe your expectations being the third or the fourth, depending on how things work out. But you're taking care of that first thing there, which is the manager's leader, your leader's expectation, sorry, and your own expectations around how you want to be managed. Both of us, we hate being micromanaged. I think most people do. I would hard pressed to find a person that likes it. There are some people maybe.
Sure.
And you might also say, I think I don't like things being sugar coated, etc. Please tell me straight if I'm going wrong. And some people like that. Some people go, okay, if you feel like I'm doing something wrong, please pull me aside. And so if that's what you want to do, 100% let that person know, because then you can't then get angry at them a week later when they kind of pull you up in front of everyone when that's not something you like.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I think a nice segue from this, I've got a really good example that was done to me, actually. It was like the other way around. So I just taken over a team and I had my like first one-on-one with someone, and I'm a big mater. I love to call people mate. We live in Australia. I say mate almost every other sentence.
Yeah.
And I had a one-on-one and I was going through this exact conversation. Like as a leader, I always like to ask, what do you want from me as a leader? And the person was just like, I don't like being called mate. And it was really like I was just like, oh, okay. And like as a leader, I think like having that clarity, knowing what not to do, I think will definitely like it helped shape my conversations. Did I still call her mate sometimes? 100%. I'm only human. I'm not going to change who I am as a human being, but it made me very conscious going in. So like from the other side, I think getting those expectations, even if it's just small stuff like that that grates on you, it just helps so much how you shape. And when I think about my leader above, that's what I want. I want them to know to avoid those few things that I don't like if they can, and also do the things that I know will help me grow as best as they can. And I think there's nothing better than open communication for that sort of thing. Now, speaking about, I've segued quite nicely, I think,
Yeah.
into people. So my question for you, Jules, and it's not week one, day one. You've got your expectations. You probably spend that first day grinding. You
Mhm.
probably go home absolutely knackered from looking at numbers and having couldn't even thrown at you. You've still got to get your head across. But as far as like the first week goes, what are your key things that you start trying to focus on when it comes to like meeting your people, getting to know your people, as you
Mm.
start to try and like learn the role, learn the company?
One of the things as a coach, and I've done even sales training and all that kind of stuff, right? We always talk about first impressions. It's so hard to
Well,
overcome first impressions. And so
100%,
you
dude.
really need to take that into account when you're leading. If your first huddle, your first interaction with someone is absolute shambles, then it's going to be hard to reverse that
Mm,
idea they will have of you. Sorry. So what I would do is really think about if it's your first interaction is a huddle, and a lot of people it is a huddle. You might not have one-on-ones that first week. We're talking about system access and all that kind of stuff. You might not really have the facilities to have a one-on-one. And so if your first
mm,
thing is a huddle, you again want to reverse engineer a little bit and think about what are the outcomes. You want to finish the huddle with a certain amount of outcomes. So it could be really want to finish the huddle with what they know what my expectations are of them. I
mm,
know a little bit around their expectations, at least as a group. You might say, listen, culturally, you can start to set the tone. So if you're a extroverted person and you want to bring in a lot of energy to huddles, I think you start that the first huddle. And you
yes,
might want to start that
100%.
with a bit of an icebreaker or do something that's going to really show that you're that kind of person. Or you might be an introverted person and you want other people to take the lead in those huddles and empower other people to really kind of bring their energy in. And that's when you kind of do that a little bit. And it might be a little bit harder to do that on day one. You might not know what the personality is like. And this is where there's kind of peer expectations. You're talking with
Mm,
shadowing other people within your kind of peer group who are under leaders
mm.
and asking them, hey, what do you know about the people I'm leading? Do you know who are the kind of outspoken people, who are the extroverts, introverts, etc.? And that can maybe go in with a little bit of the information and get people talking.
I actually have a few thoughts on that as well, actually. I will
Mm,
say that this is really important, and I'll give an example here. You should be asking those questions. Try to find out from the people who are leading and get that little bit of information. But by all
mm,
means, do not let that completely overrule your own judgment.
correct.
I think it's really
Yeah.
important. I give
Mm,
this example fairly regularly whenever this conversation comes up. I just started as a team leader. I'd moved up into a team leader role. And as I was being spoken through the people at this company, they said to me, they were like, oh, this girl, she's a little bit trouble. She's a troublemaker, whatever. And I'm like, okay, so what's going on? And they were like, well, she's got like some wedding plans. Like she's going to do some planning thing for a wedding in 5 weeks' time on a Saturday, but she's actually rostered to work that day. And so we're expecting
mm,
her just to call in sick. Right. And I was like, okay, so what are we doing to like help her get the day off? She's got plans for a wedding. And they were like, oh, well, she's rostered to
yeah.
be working. And we couldn't give her the day's leave. And in my head, I was just like, okay, so what are we doing? Like just doing a shift or something? And they were just like, oh, no, well, we're just kind of waiting to see. She'll call in sick. And then we've got something that we can be like, well, you knew you had plans. And in my head, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, you're setting this person up for failure, right? And I was actually kind of glad that they were so overt with the fact that they were setting this person up with failure, because then it
Yeah.
let me know everything you're telling me about every single member of staff, take with a massive pinch of salt. And just to like round that story out just quietly, took over the team. I sent an email to the team being like, hey, this person needs Saturday off in 5 weeks' time. Can anyone cover it? I literally had a shift swap sorted within an hour. Within 60 minutes, she got the day off. And let me tell you, the happiness, the joy, the support for me that got from her, like she was team Bill. She would have died for me at that point because she knew that she was being set up for
Yeah.
failure. And instantly I've come in, got a quick win, earned her support. And so I agree with you. Definitely get those questions. Definitely ask the people, who are my people, who are my guys, who are not my guys, but take it with a pinch of salt because other people will let their biases impact how they see people. And you're not them, you're you. You might find
Mm,
your leadership style is distinct enough to get things out of people that other people cannot. I know, Jules, you're very much like me. We joke at work and we refer to ourselves as the special vibes unit, but it's very much true. Like we do have a lot of energy and we do bring that into huddles. We do bring that into one-on-one. And it does kind of empower people to enjoy coming to work. And I think that there are definitely people that would enjoy our style more than others. And don't get me wrong, I guarantee there's people the other way around as well. I guarantee there are people in my huddle that are like, Bill, it's Monday morning, please just shut the hell up. But I think you've got to kind of play to your strengths very much.
we sometimes so get lost in the world of this company means everything, or this job, or these targets, or this
Mhm.
current change or project we're going through means the world
Mhm.
to everyone. And it doesn't. It doesn't mean the world to most people. It means the world to
No.
you and only you, because it's your
Mhm.
project, it's your thing that you're kind of driving. So
Correct.
it's important to understand people have lives. How dare they
Mm.
have a life, right? You're like, how dare
I
she
know.
go for a wedding or whatever? It's ridiculous to expect that people don't try to get away with doing just minimal sometimes as well. And it's just understanding
Correct.
the personality. Some people want to excel, some people just want a job and all that kind of stuff as well. And I think it's important. Yeah, correct. When you're talking to your peers and going, oh, so and so is like this, and be careful about this person.
I mean, it's just
Um,
your style's different, right? Like you're
yeah, correct.
engaging in a way that others are not, much like they're engaging on, you're not. And
And what you
it's so
value
hard
is
to
different. What you value
correct
is different to what they
100%.
value. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you do kind of raise another good point that I actually wanted to bring up, and this is more specifically for people that have been promoted. If you are someone that's moved up into the
Mm,
role, and I think you very much touched on it with a couple of the points you've said. It is not possible to expect everybody to be at perfect behavior all the time. If any of our
mhm.
senior leaders listen to this, they're going to hate to hear it, but like we know that people. I was a consultant once too. I know that people abuse ACW on a Friday afternoon after call
Yeah.
work. For those of you that don't work in a call center, I know that people do it. It's unreasonable to expect them to never do it, and I think it's just about managing that. Now, as a new leader, when you come up, you really need to make sure that you are seeing yourself as a leader. You're not one of the squad anymore. You're not one of the boys or girls
Mm,
anymore, right? Like you are a leader. And so you do have to act like it. And by that, what I mean is, as an employee on a Monday morning, you feel like, oh, Monday, hate Mondays. As a team leader, I don't think you can. There's a very much a reason why my status on Slack says TGIM and my background says TGIM. Thank God it's Monday on a Monday. Am I glad that it's Monday? Probably not. And so if you're one of my people listening to this right now, you have to, as a leader, come in with that energy all the time, and you can't be someone that complains about work anymore. But at the same time, you're not a cop. I say this all the time. I've seen so many people get promoted
mm,
as leaders, and they see people doing something that's slightly suboptimal, and they just come down on them like a ton of bricks. Just like, oh my God, this person went into after call 2 minutes before their break, or I've caught this person doing this. And it's like, mate, they've done it once on a Thursday. Relax. If it's a repeated behavior, just have a conversation.
mm.
You don't need to be going straight to like formal convo first time. Just be like, mate, seen you doing this, wrap it up.
As you said before, you're not a cop. You are a leader, and a leader. Yes, you do live by example, but
Mm,
also a leader is a guide. A guide does not mean rules. It does not mean regulations. A guide literally means you're giving them
mhm,
something to follow. It doesn't mean they have
mhm.
to follow exactly the way you did it either.
100%. And I think when it comes down to this, and this is a bit of a tip if you are a new leader as well, right? You've got to understand that people are human. They are not going to be operating at optimal performance all the time. They're not a machine. And so if someone's ACW on a Friday is not quite at the target, but over the week it is, doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you come down like I'm Tom Briggs. At the end of the day, they pass their target for the week, they pass their target for the month. It'll be fine. And I think we just have to, like new leaders, sometimes get lost in that trap a little bit if everything has to be perfect all the time. And ultimately, as long as they're doing a good job, hitting their metrics and are working in the way that you want to, developing all that sort of stuff, those little bits and pieces are kind of irrelevant, to be honest.
Yeah, it kind of just kind of bringing that back to that first huddle or their first interaction a little bit, right? Saying some of these things is a really good idea. With my first huddle that I had, one of the things I told them was very early on. I said this in a very blunt way, but in a friendly way. I do not care if you have one bad day, one bad hour. What I do care is what happens over the week, over the month, over the quarter, over 6 months, a year. Long term
Mm,
is where the game's at. It's never the short term. It's about understanding the world is built on averages there, especially when you're leading frontline people. It's all about the average day. Is the average
mm,
day better than anyone else's, or is it lower than anyone else's? And that's how you judge them, right? When you're
yeah.
having reviews, your company might have monthly reviews. Some companies have 6 monthly, yearly. There's not a company in this world that has a daily review or an hourly review for a reason, because that it means absolutely nothing to anyone. To be
I
honest
think
with you.
if we kind of get into the specifics of this first huddle, right? Like if we're talking like, you're meeting your people, you're connecting with your people, what kind of things should you be talking about? I think those kind of the expectations that I personally would be setting. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell all new leaders, oh, you should tell your people to be naughty and they'll get away with it as long as they're not naughty too often.
Mm,
But I think it's very much that point of like what I'm worried about. And I think especially in a call center, some staff will get really anxious or nervous when they have one call where they're in after call work for too long, or if they have one grumpy customer that goes for an hour. And I think it's really important to stress that no, we work on averages. It's a numbers game. As long as you're doing the right things, putting the right effort in, I'm there to support you. Another thing that I'm really hot on is if you make mistakes, no matter how big, how small, just know that I am always there for you. It's something I'm really hot on. I will go to bat for my people. I'll go to the mat for my people 10 times out of 10, but you need to tell me if you've done something.
Yeah.
I can speak from personal experience. I have stuffed up massively before on calls. And as soon as I've gone to my leader, at least they know, at least they're across it. If something comes of it, you've got that support network. There's nothing worse than hiding it. And I think it's just really important that as a leader, you let people know that your door is open and that no matter what they do, you will always be there to support them. Because I think people forget that. And I think new leaders don't realize as well sometimes how much like a parent you are. And you kind of are. Like you will end up dealing with people's personal lives a fair bit more than you kind of expect to. And you have to be comfortable with that. And I just think it's important, like I said, in that first meeting, just let them know, again, that your door is open and you're always available no matter what.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny because I'm not only a coach and a leader, I'm also a dad. It's the same thing we do with my little one. When she does something wrong, sometimes she freaks out if she does something wrong, and she like looks at us really guiltily, and like we go, what did you do? We really want to make her feel comfortable to share what she's done wrong, because then that gives us an opportunity to have a conversation about it. I think if they feel uncomfortable sharing, oh, geez, you're creating a toxic environment straight off the bat. You know what I mean? Go back to that disciplinarian, micromanaging kind of stuff that people kind of tend to default into sometimes in leadership. If you trust people to do the right thing, give them the opportunity to prove that you can trust them first before jumping in and going, oh, mate, this person, I don't know about them so much. Let them prove you differently. Let them prove you differently.
Correct.
You'll be surprised.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Is there anything else that you particularly go through in that first meeting? Because I think this is important, right? In that meeting, not only are you going to set those expectations, just set expectations for what you work like, I think. Me personally, I am so forgetful. I rule on my entire thing is if it is not written down, it didn't happen. If you come to me and you ask me to do a thing, I would always recommend sending me a Slack message and email. Sometimes I remember, sometimes I'll get it straight away. But I also might have 100 other things to do. And if it's in writing, I guarantee I will do it. And so I like to let my team know that that's how I operate. It's not on purpose. Yeah. It's not optimal. A great leader maybe wouldn't need to do that. I do, unfortunately. I am really forgetful. And I think just letting my team know that early and then reinforcing that positively when they send me that first email, just get on things straight away, I think, and just kind of like demonstrate that value that way. And I think letting people know how you operate. And lastly, ask for feedback. Ask for feedback. What do they like? What do they want from you? What do they want to see from you as a leader? And I mentioned this to you the other day, Jules. I also do that in one-on-ones. I do it at the end of every single one-on-one I run with someone, whether it's the first one, the 100th one. At the end, I ask if there's anything they need from me, anything they want me to do differently, any of those sorts of things. And let me tell you, the first time in a one-on-one I asked someone that question, I almost died. I asked the question, and the words left my mouth, and I felt my soul leave my body as I was like, this person is about to savage me. They are about to tell me that I'm terrible at my job. I'm a horrible leader, a horrible human being. And then this person looked me in the eyes and were like, oh, no, you're great. Just keep doing exactly what you're doing. I absolutely love working for you. Blah, blah, blah. Favorite leader, blah, 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 as they often do. Of course, because I'm so great. But you get the idea. But I think you have to have that avenue open. And that's where the person I was talking about before did tell me they don't like being called mate. It's because I asked that question. And I think you've got to tell what your expectations are and make sure you've got that feedback open for them to give you yours.
Yeah, if I was to dilute that a little bit more, if you were to follow that little avenue a little bit more around feedback, you can do that. You can 100% do that in the first ever huddle or team meeting that you have.
Yeah.
Take the angle of feedback around what do they want their interactions to be, which kind of brings us to that second kind of stream of expectations around what are their expectations. And this is where that comes in a little bit. So far, I think we've done a really good job of talking through kind of bringing them along the journey around what you're going to be like as a leader, what your expectations are going to be like. This is an opportunity to flip the script a little bit and go, talk me through what do you want huddles to be like? What do you find useful in huddles? The worst kind of huddle, we've been through tons of these meetings, Bill, you and I, we're massive eye rollers when it comes to a boring meeting. It could have been an email, is that some people have different expectations around what they find engaging. And so you want those huddles to be something they look forward to, that they get value out of, especially sometimes in our environment. You have team meetings no matter what, right? Like no matter what's going on, you have the team meeting anyway. So you might as well find a way to connect with them in those moments at all time. And the other
I
thing
agree.
is even float the idea of empowering people for day dot. It's not a bad idea to do that around. I don't want these interactions to be just me waffling on for half an hour, how long your meetings are. I want you guys to bring some ideas and for you guys to contribute in terms of things that you want to do as well. So that there might be people that go, hey, I want to become a leader in the future, or I want to contribute some ideas. And you go, okay, do you want to run the next huddle? And that can take some of the load off straight away as well in that first couple of
Mhm.
weeks while you're kind of trying to get stuff done. You can essentially, delegate some of those huddle planning and duties to people that, are already in the business, already know maybe some of the KPIs if you're new to that business, especially. And so that can
Yeah.
give you some time to learn and hit the ground running, so to speak.
Yeah. No, I could not agree more. I could not agree more. I think one last thing for me that I do in this huddle every single time, and I love to ask this question, ask your people what their pain points are.
Mm.
What do they not like about the role? Look, I don't bother asking what they do like about the role really, because it's usually the same sorts of things, but what do they not like? And you'd be fine surprised. You think when you ask that question, you get some like, oh, it sucks, working sucks, I wish we were home. But you don't. You tend to
Yeah.
get some really good information like, oh, I wish this article was a little bit better. I wish this process was smoother. I don't like that we have to do this. I don't like to have to do that. And some of the things are pretty simple. You can just give an answer for. Even if you've just started, you would know the answer. But then some of those things give you actionable things that you can take away and look into. And I've always been big as a leader in saying this. And so another one of the expectations I set is I do not know the answer for most things, but I will get
Mm.
you the answer. And I think there is so much power in that first huddle, having a bunch of people tell you what they don't like about that role. And then within an hour or two, you just be like, hey, X said Y in the huddle. I've actually gone and got you an answer for this. This is the answer. Or
Mm.
it turns out I've actually managed to get the process on getting this fixed. And I tell you now, if you do something like that in the first hour, 2 hours of meeting your team, you've gotten them some answer to something that's been nagging away at them or something to help get a problem solved that they've been chewing on for 6 months. I guarantee you could almost buy that a loving support forever just from that one simple interaction. And I think you can really like demonstrate your value and build that connection as a team member, as a team leader. And I will say this bonus tip, you
Mm.
have to follow through as a leader, right? Obviously, everybody knows that. My advice, first week, get as many of those things as you can. Get as many runs on the board as you can with a team, as many small things that you can do to support them, build, show that if they have a problem and come to you, it will get solved. It very much ties into us, what we were talking about before around opening that dialogue and making sure the door
Mm.
is open, much like you do with your daughter. I think if they come to you with a few small things and you knock over a few small things in the week, it already kind of creates a like vision in their mind that, man, every time I go to Jules, he tends to get that stuff done. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And that can
Mm.
be very, very powerful at building that bond.
Yeah, correct.
What are your thoughts?
Vibes can only get you so far, right? So,
Yeah,
you really
vibes
want
only
to
get you
back
so
up
far,
those
bro.
vibes with some actual progress,
Action.
some actual things that you want to do. Yeah, correct. Action. So, I think
Yeah.
that kind of brings us a little bit. I think we've kind of explored, sorry, your leader, your people, and I think maybe it kind of brings us to segues right into your expectations a little bit. I think,
Mm.
and the reason why I'm saying that is I think once you do get some of those quick wins or things that you can turn around really quickly, and you kind of mentioned this before around, not remembering things or not be,
Mm.
sometimes remember, I think one of the expectations,
Yeah.
no matter who you are, and you will have a ton of expectations for yourself. I think finding a way to record those things somewhere, so you can follow those up. I mean, a checklist is, I know, boring as brass tacks
No.
checklists are, but those first few weeks, as a leader, checklists help mightily. So make your checklist,
Mate.
whether you're kind of old school like me, pen and paper style, or you want to just do it on your laptop, or you want, whatever, do it somewhere. Just record those things that they've told you that you need to follow up. Your leaders told you, your people have told you, your peers have told you. And lo and behold, you might actually check some of these things off and you'll feel better about it. This is one of those things about coaching that we'll get into in other episodes as well. But when you can get some one
Mm.
percenters under your belt, you feel so much
Mm.
better about yourself as a person. Your people that you do that for feel better about you as well. So there's the
Mm.
wins all around. So make a checklist. I will
Yeah.
guarantee you won't
Have
let yourself
I
down.
have I told you the name of my checklist / to-do list? Did you know this?
No.
No, my checklist is called the Hydra because you cut off one head and two more
No, yeah,
guys.
yeah. Yeah, I think you've told me this ages ago. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Sometimes as a leader, I think that's very much how it feels like every problem I solve leads to two more problems to solve. But
Yeah.
I think much to you, what you're saying, I think there definitely is, that serotonin release, right? Like I've done
Yeah.
something, I've achieved something, I've crossed something off the
Mm,
list. And I think that
mm,
very much applies to your people as well. I think we've kind of covered off a lot of the things, George, just to kind of give a bit of a recap of what we've gone through so far. So we've kind of covered
mm.
off, like, having that conversation with your team leader, setting those your superior rather, setting those expectations both ways, how to catch up with your people, that first huddle, that first one-on-one, those kind of things we've gone through there. Is there anything you think we've missed off? Is there anything you think we need to go into a little bit
Yeah,
further?
I think maybe the one-on-ones themselves. So if you do, once you've had that huddle, hopefully that's, as I said before, that's your first interaction. But you might have a one-on-one
Mm,
as your first interaction, and that that you've got to kind of treat that a little bit differently. But either way, you might have one-on-ones in that first week. And I would recommend
mm,
having one-on-ones, within the first 2 weeks for sure. You know what I mean? Maybe
yes.
first week, it really depends on a few things, but I think first 2 weeks for sure. Now
Mm,
that those, how do you approach those one-on-ones? I think let's spend a little bit of time, and I think some of the expectations on huddles will overflow into your one-on-ones. You still want to make a great first impression. You still want to have things you can action for them and get those quick wins. All those fantastic things, kind of definitely, Venn diagram. They kind of cross
mm,
over each other. But if you're going
yeah.
purely into one-on-one stuff, I think doing a little bit of prep work. I know a lot of, this is something that most leaders, and we'll get into this more in other episodes, don't really prep for their one-on-ones. They're kind of, it just happens. It's a thing that's in their calendar. We talk
Mm,
about, one of the concepts around leadership, and I know tons of people have said this, is that, we have to do one-on-ones, and like that kind of, we get to do them is a different
100%.
mentality, and you're
Yes.
getting to meet with the people that are going to shape your success over the next 6 months, a year. So, you know, take
Mhm.
these very seriously, and I think you should go in with some great intentions that you want to, I say it was great objectives you want to uncover in those particular meetings. It
So
doesn't have to be a proper coaching
mhm,
session either. I think those first one-on-ones just need to be a get to know you. To be honest with you, I
I was
don't.
gonna say.
I think for God's sakes, please, if even if your line manager says Bill, I want you to talk to John and tell him his, KPIs last week were trash, and I want you to coach them on him. Probably don't. Maybe set up another one-on-one separately to the first one.
100.
My
Yeah.
honest reaction to that. And if that's not possible, I think try to find another way. I think it's important that your first one is just a positive get to know you, get to understand what they individually want out of you as a leader, what your expectations are of them, etc. Similar to your huddles. I think the other
Yeah.
thing as well is just understanding what they want out of their journey as an employee. Forget about leadership for a second, forget about everything else. Why do they bother coming into work? Why do they bother getting onto the train, packing their lunch, whatever they're doing, to get to work and do the job they're doing? Is it a means to an end? Is it because it gives them flexibility? What are those things? And that can really shape how you interact with this person going forwards as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like the easy answer is money, obviously, but like
Hmm,
there's a reason they work here and not somewhere else. Right? Like
correct.
there are a million jobs out there if you want them. So why do they work here? What is it about this place that they come to work for? I definitely think that my approach to like these kind of one-on-ones is maybe less structured than yours would be. I definitely, I think, first to circle back, I agree with exactly what you said. Prep for the meeting. I say regularly, the numbers don't lie, right? Nobody likes looking at stats and stuff. As a team leader, being a team leader 90% of it is actually quite boring.
Hmm,
Unfortunately, for those of you that are moving into being a team leader role, get prepared to spend so much time than you care to admit looking at spreadsheets or reviewing that sort of stuff. But I
hmm.
think first of all, if you've had that conversation with your leader, you know what success looks like. I would then use that to pull up my person before every one-on-one. And like you said, prepare. I'm not going to talk to the numbers in that session at
Hmm.
all, but I want to know the numbers before I go into that session
Yeah.
because it will give me context. When I'm asking questions around why they come to work, what they enjoy, blah, 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 it'll give me context. Like if I look at someone and their numbers are absolutely unreal, and then I'm in that conversation, they're like, I want to be a leader. Perfect. Well, we can definitely help with that. We can start the journey. We can do this, 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 this. You know what I mean? You can start to have like really get them excited. But if they're terrible at their role and they're one of the worst performers and like I want to be a leader, it's really going to shape how you have that conversation and it's very much going to
Yeah.
change what you say.
Great point.
But I definitely think my first session is as much as we say vibes only get you so far, pure vibes. I just want to know my people.
Mm,
And I'm talking like genuinely just know my people. What do they do with their free time? What do they like outside of work? What are their hobbies?
mm,
I want to get to know them as human beings because, much like you said, these are the people I'm going to work with next 6 months, 12 months longer.
mm.
I want to connect with these people. I want to care about these people. I want them to care about me, right? In that sense, like we are a team, and I think we're going to spend so much time together. We could at least know each other. Someone, and not everyone wants to share, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not going to
Mm.
delve into people's personal lives. I want to know inside and out. But I think it's always just good to know what gets people ticking and what makes them come to work. All those kind of bits and pieces as a human being outside of work. I think
Yeah.
it's more impactful sometimes than you might think.
Yeah, even
You
like,
know.
go back to the not everyone wants to share, even knowing that they're not a sharer is sharing, you know what I mean?
It's
Like,
huge.
if you
Yeah.
know that they're a, quite quiet and, introverted
Yeah.
person, then you know that that's something you got to kind of deal with in terms of huddles and more group environments, et cetera, et cetera. So that still
Yeah.
shapes it. So yeah, correct. Even if you ask these questions and you met with not much, you still get an idea of what that person's like and what they want out of their job.
Yeah. I used to work
The
with a guy I used to call
analogy
Boba
that I
Fett.
use is, say, for instance, sorry, all good. No, sorry. The analogy that I use sometimes with this kind of
Yeah.
situations is, say, whatever sport you like to play, or, games,
Yeah.
if you're into gaming, whatever, and you're creating a team, right? Would you
Yeah.
create a team of people you don't know whatsoever? You know what I mean? Like, would you create like bunch of nobodies, just names you picked off a list?
Mm.
Usually, you're picking up, you're creating a pickup basketball game or whatever you're playing, you know what I mean, on the weekend.
Mhm.
You pick people that
Mhm.
you're friends with, that you can work together, and you know what their kind of
100%.
styles are like. So
Yeah.
it's a very different situation here. This is a team that's been given to you. Most cases, you haven't hired these people. Most
Mm.
cases, some cases you do again. That's awesome. But if you've
Mm.
just been given some people and you don't know, you know, jack
Mm.
about
Yeah.
what they do, then mate, in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like, knowing who they are will shape every interaction. As I was mentioning before, like, there's a guy I used to call Boba Fett, and the reason I used to call him that is because, and I used to say this to his face, he's a mercenary, right? Like, that's what I used to describe him as. He comes to work, clocks in, does his work, clocks off, doesn't engage with literally anybody that works there. But at
Yeah.
least if I know that he's a mercenary, at least if I know that he's like that, it can shape my interactions around, like, okay, well, you just like turning up and getting paid. This is what you need to do to keep yourself on track to not have to have more conversations with me or with other leaders, right?
Yeah.
Like hit these benchmarks and then everything will be smooth and perfect. That's what I'm paid to do. That's what I'll do. But I think if I hadn't taken the time to get to know that he was a mercenary, then those conversations may not have gone as smoothly, and we may not have got the outcomes we were after in the end. You know?
Yeah, yeah, good. So I think that kind of, we could. I mean, listen, you and I could talk forever about every single one of these streams, and I think we will. We will kind of explore these things as the weeks go on. I think you got to be really conscious about not overdoing it in the first week as well. You've got a ton of things to learn and get your
Mm,
head wrapped around, especially if you're new to the company. But even if you aren't, there's still a lot of things that you're just mulling around in your head. So I think if you
mm,
get some basics right around, you know, I think, yeah, understanding expectations from all those 4 streams we spoke about, and then understanding what you want to get out of your first interactions with your people, with your leaders and your peers, then you're already off on a better start than most leaders are,
I think
providing you
so.
got
And I think
access.
even if you haven't nailed all 4 of those streams of
Mm,
expectations, if you have just set up the importance of them and you've just started to work to getting those streams flow, I think you'll be in a really good spot. And I
mm.
also think if you take nothing else from this video, if you listen to me and Jules waffle on for near an hour and you take nothing else, just remember, send emails about getting your system access, because I guarantee you won't have
Just
access to the systems. I
yeah,
cannot
yeah,
stress
yeah,
this enough to you right now.
yeah.
But I think, and again, one last thing from me, just if you don't know, it's fine. And I think no one expects you to be perfect. Sometimes when you get promoted, you move into a new role, there's so much expectations. It's fine if you don't know how to do things. We'll all figure it out. Just be open, be honest.
Yeah, you weren't
Um,
hired to be an SME. You were hired to be a leader. So
correct.
you know what I
I
mean.
know I've worked in several places where I know absolutely nothing about the thing that we're working on, but
Mm,
I know how to manage people, I know how to lead, I know how to coach, I know how to develop, and they're the things that are important.
yeah.
So I think that's about us. I think that's about all we've got time for today, Jules. I think this has been a fantastic conversation. I think there's
Mm,
definitely been some useful things here. If you at home watching this have taken some things from this video, please do like the video, drop us a
mm,
subscribe or a follow. It helps us an absolute ton. I cannot stress that to you enough. But also, if you agree with anything we said, you disagree with anything we said, or if there's
mm.
something you've added, you think that we've missed, Drop a comment, let us know. We'd absolutely love to hear from you. And also, if there's anything else you want to hear us talk about, if there's anything that we spoke about today that you're like, damn, Jules and Bill, you were cooking right there, we want to hear a little bit more, let us know, and then we can make sure that that's a future video as well.
Yeah, correct. And I think, we want feedback. This is a learning journey for us as well.
100%.
We're getting uncomfortable sharing about leadership journey and getting into a new medium around sharing this. We want to really disrupt what leadership looks like across multiple industries and how people handle things. That's why we call ourselves the Disrupt Leaders podcast. So we want you guys to genuinely start a community with us around the things that we find challenging and what we want leadership to look like for ourselves, for our colleagues, for our employees. So please, please, please jump on the comment section, share your difficulties, but also share your ideas of things that work. We might have discussed something, you got, oh, geez, I wish they spoke about this because that's really worked for me when I first started and wherever. And so, jump in, share those ideas.
No worries. Well, look, that's about all we've got time for today. Thank you very much for listening along, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.